Let me tell you something that will change your perspective forever. You know that feeling when something feels off about how someone treats you, but you can't quite put your finger on it, that subtle tension in the air. Today I'm going to reveal the hidden science that someone secretly dislikes you. I'd spent decades studying human behavior, the power of consciousness, and the invisible threads that connect our reality. What I'm about to share isn't just theory, it's the raw truth about human nature and the masks people wear. But before we dive into these signs, understand this. Knowing these signs isn't about breeding paranoia. It's about awakening your consciousness to reality so you can create better relationships and manifest the connections you truly deserve. The first sign is what I call the energy shift. When someone who secretly dislikes you enters a room, watch how their energy changes. Their shoulders might tense slightly, their smile might not reach their eyes, or they might suddenly become overly nice, almost artificially so. This isn't coincidence, it's their consciousness revealing what their words try to hide. You see, in my years of observation, I've noticed that people cannot hide their true vibration. The law of consciousness states that what's inside must manifest outside. When someone harbors negative feelings toward you, their energy field disrupts the natural flow between you both. Let me tell you about the second sign, the subtle art of exclusion. This person might forget to include you in group conversations, or they might consistently interrupt you when you speak. They'll make it seem accidental, but remember, there are no accidents in the universe of consciousness. Think about this deeply for a moment. Have you noticed how some people always seem to have an excuse for why they couldn't respond to your message, yet they're instantly responsive to others? This isn't random, it's a deliberate pattern cloaked in casualness. The third sign lies in their body language. When someone secretly dislikes you, their body tells the truth, their words won't. They might point their feet away from you while talking, cross their arms when you speak, or maintain minimal eye contact. These aren't just random movements. They're physical manifestations of their inner state. I've observed countless interactions where people claim to be friends while their bodies scream disagreement. Your consciousness picks up on these subtle cues before your rational mind does. That's why you often feel something's wrong before you can explain why. The fourth sign is what I call the comparison game. Someone who secretly dislikes you will often make subtle comparisons that put you in a less favorable light. They might praise others specifically for qualities they know you're working on, or they might highlight their own achievements in areas where you've faced challenges. But here's what's crucial to understand. These signs aren't about them. They're reflections of your own consciousness manifesting in your reality. When you understand this, you gain the power to change these dynamics completely. The fifth sign lies in their reactions to your success. Watch careful when you share good news. Someone who secretly dislikes you will have a millisecond reaction, a tiny flinch, a slight tightening of their smile, or a quick look away before they compose themselves to offer congratulations. The sixth sign manifests in how they discuss you with others. Someone harboring hidden dislike will often use subtle, passive, aggressive comments. They might say things like, "You're so brave to wear that," or "It's impressive how you don't care what others think." These backhanded compliments are daggers wrapped in velvet. Now let me reveal the seventh sign, something I've observed through years of studying human behavior. Notice how they handle your vulnerabilities. When you share personal struggles, do they offer genuine support, or do they file away this information, later using it as ammunition in subtle ways? But here's where it gets interesting. These signs are merely the surface of a deeper truth. Your reality is a perfect reflection of your consciousness. If you're consistently attracting people who secretly dislike you, it's time to examine your inner world. Think about this. How often do you fully accept yourself? The treatment you receive from others is often a mirror of your self-concept. When you truly understand this principle, you'll see these signs not as obstacles, but as opportunities for transformation. I've watched countless individuals transform their relationships by shifting their inner state. When you operate from a place of complete self-acceptance, these signs either disappear or lose their power over you. Let me share a profound truth about human nature. People who harbor secret dislike often feel threatened by your potential. They sense your power, your capability to achieve greatness, and it triggers their own insecurities. Under this, every person who secretly dislikes you is actually offering you valuable information about yourself. They're showing you where you might be dimming your light to make others comfortable. The real question isn't just about identifying these signs. It's about understanding what to do with this knowledge. When you recognize these patterns, you have two choices: react from ego or respond from consciousness. Your power lies in your response. When you encounter someone displaying these signs, remember their behavior says more about their inner world than it does about you. Their dislike is often a projection of their own unresolved issues. Let me tell you about the transformation that occurs when you truly grasp this concept. You'll stop seeking approval from those who withhold it. You'll stop trying to convince others of your worth. Instead, you'll stand firmly in your own power. Consider how often you've sensed someone's dislike but doubted your intuition. That doubt isn't serving you. It's your inner knowing, that subtle voice whispering that something isn't right. That's your consciousness communicating vital information. I've observed a fascinating pattern in human behavior. The eighth hidden sign, yes, there's more than 7, is what I call selective memory. Notice how these individuals conveniently forget your contributions but remember your mistakes. This isn't coincidence. It's a manifestation of their inner resistance to your energy. But here's where most people get it wrong. They focus on changing the other person's behavior or proving their worth. This is a trap. The real power lies in understanding that every external reaction is a reflection of your inner state. Let me share something profound about energy and intention. When someone harbors hidden dislike, they're actually sending you negative energy wrapped in a smile. Your body knows this. That's why you feel drained after interacting with them, even when nothing overtly negative happened. Think about the last time you felt this way, that heaviness in your chest, that slight tension in your shoulders. Your body was telling you what their words weren't. This is your internal guidance system at work. The 9th sign. Because yes, there are even more, manifests in their timing. Watch how they choose moments when you're vulnerable, celebrating to subtly undermine you. These moments might bring up your past failures right before an important presentation, or diminish your achievements right when you're feeling proud. But here's the crucial understanding. These moments are actually gifts. They're opportunities to strengthen your self-concept, to practice standing firmly in your truth, regardless of external validation. I've witnessed countless transformations when people grasp this truth. When you stop seeking approval from those who are committed to misunderstanding you, you reclaim your power. Your energy shifts, and suddenly these signs of dislike have no hold over you. Consider this deeper truth. Every person who displays these signs is actually playing a role in your spiritual growth. They're showing you where you still seek external validation, where you might be giving your power away. Let me share something about the 10th sign, their inconsistency. One day they're overly friendly, the next they're cold. This hot and cold behavior isn't random. It's a calculated attempt to keep you off balance, to maintain control through unpredictability. Let me take you deeper into understanding these complex human dynamics. The 11th sign manifests in what I call the echo effect. Notice how these individuals often echo your words back to you, but with a subtle twist that changes their meaning entirely. This is a sophisticated form of manipulation. I've observed something fascinating about human nature. When someone harbors hidden dislike, they often become hyper-aware of your presence. They might track your movements in a room while pretending not to notice you. This heightened awareness stems from their own internal conflict. Consider how these people handle your boundaries. The 12th sign appears when they consistently push against your limits while maintaining plausible deniability. They'll say things like, "I was just joking," or "You're being too sensitive," when you express discomfort. But here's where it gets interesting. Their resistance to your boundaries is actually information about where you need to strengthen your own energetic field. Every time they push against your limits, they're showing you where you need to reinforce your self-worth. Let me share something profound about energy alignment. When someone secretly dislikes you, they create what I call energy leaks in your field. You might find yourself thinking about their behavior, replaying interactions, trying to understand why they act the way they do. The 13th sign manifests in their selective hearing. They'll conveniently misunderstand your clear statements, especially when those statements assert your power or establish boundaries. This is an accident. It's resistance to your truth. I think about the last time you felt emotionally exhausted after an interaction. That fatigue isn't just physical. It's your energy field responding to their hidden negativity. Your body is more intelligent than you realize. It recognizes truth before your mind does. I've witnessed the 14th sign countless times, the way these individuals use silence as a weapon. They might withhold acknowledgement when you enter a room, delay responses to direct questions, or create uncomfortable pauses in conversation. But here's the revolutionary understanding: their silence is actually speaking volumes about their own inner turmoil. When someone can't celebrate your light, it's because they're struggling with their own darkness. Consider how these people handle your growth. The 15th sign appears when they subtly discourage your progress while appearing supportive. They might say, "Are you sure you're ready for that?" Or "That seems risky," when you share your ambitions. I've observed how these individuals manipulate social dynamics. They create what I call invisible triangles, speaking differently about you when you're present versus when you're absent. They maintain a perfectly crafted public image while secretly undermining your position. Think about the energy of authenticity. The 17th sign manifests in their forced laughter. It comes a fraction too late or sounds slightly mechanical. Their social responses feel rehearsed rather than genuine. This disconnect between their outer expression and inner state creates a subtle disturbance in the energy field. Consider how they handle your emotions. When you express genuine feelings, they often respond with toxic positivity or dismissive optimism. "Just get over it," they might say, or "Everything happens for a reason," without offering real empathy or understanding. Let me reveal something profound about human nature. The 18th sign appears in their physical positioning. In group settings, they'll subtly position themselves to exclude you from conversations while maintaining the appearance of inclusion. This is consciousness manifesting in physical form. I have witnessed countless situations where these individuals use what I call selective amnesia. They conveniently forget their commitments to you while remembering every minor mistake you've made. This selective memory isn't random. It's a pattern of conscious resistance. The 19th sign emerges in their timing. Notice how they often choose moments when you're most vulnerable or successful to plant seeds of doubt. This isn't coincidence. It's a calculated attempt to destabilize your energy field. Think about the power of presence. These people often create what I call energy vacuums, spaces where your natural enthusiasm or joy seems to disappear. You might enter a room feeling confident, only to feel your energy drain in their presence. Let me share something about the 20th sign, their use of information. They collect details about your life, not to understand you better, but to use this knowledge strategically. They might bring up sensitive topics in group settings or use your past experiences to subtly undermine you. Let me reveal something profound about the 21st sign, what I call the resonance disruption. When someone harbors hidden dislike, they unconsciously create discordant energy patterns that interfere with natural communication flow. I've observed how these individuals master what I call tactical timing. They choose precise moments to inject doubt into your victories or highlight your insecurities. It's like they have an internal radar for when you're most vulnerable or most confident. Consider the 27 sign, their peculiar way of offering help. They'll extend assistance in ways that subtly emphasize your dependence or inadequacy. Let me help you with that. Since you struggle with these things, they might say, cloaking criticism and kindness. Think about the power of authentic connection. These people often maintain what I call surface synchronicity, appearing to be in harmony while internally maintaining a frequency of resistance. Your inner being senses this misalignment, creating that uncomfortable feeling you can't quite name. Let me share something about the 23rd sign, their relationship with your success. Watch how they handle your achievements. They might acknowledge them briefly, then quickly shift the conversation to difficulties or potential problems you might face. I've witnessed the 24th sign countless times, what I call energetic interference. These individuals often position themselves as gatekeepers to opportunities, subtly limiting your access while maintaining an appearance of support. Consider how they handle group dynamics. The The 25th sign appears in how they create what I call social triangulation. They'll build alliances with others while subtly positioning you as an outsider or while maintaining plausible deniability. Think about the power of words. These people often use what I call verbal diminishment. They'll use slightly smaller words to describe your achievements compared to others or subtly downplay your contributions in group settings. Let me reveal the 26th sign, their relationship with your growth. When you're evolving or transforming, they often respond with what I call progressive resistance. The more you grow, the more subtle their undermining becomes. I've observed how they master what I call conversational redirection. Whenever you speak about your passions or achievements, they skillfully steer the conversation toward areas where they feel superior or where they know you've struggled. Consider the 28th sign, their peculiar way of remembering. They maintain what I call a selective archive of mystery, readily recalling your missteps while conveniently forgetting your successes. This isn't memory failure, it's conscious curation. Think about how they handle your relationships with others. These people often engage in what I call invisible separation. They create subtle barriers between you and others through barely perceptible hints, suggestions, and carefully placed doubts. Let me reveal something about the 29th sign, their relationship with your dreams. When you share your aspirations, they respond with what I call realistic poisoning, injecting just enough doubt to make you question yourself while appearing pragmatic. I've witnessed the 30th sign manifold times, what I call emotional misdirection. They'll acknowledge your feelings while subtly suggesting that you're overreacting or misinterpreting situations. This creates an internal doubt that can erode your self-trust. Consider how they handle moments of vulnerability. The 31st sign appears in what I call compassion masking. They'll express sympathy while subtly highlighting your weaknesses, making you feel both supported and undermined simultaneously. Think about their relationship with your boundaries. These individuals often employ what I call boundary blurring. They'll respect your limits in obvious ways while finding subtle methods to cross them, make it difficult to address without appearing oversensitive. Let me share something about the 30 Sunan sign, their use of silence. They wield what I call strategic stillness, using quiet moments not for reflection, but as a form of passive aggression, making you question yourself and a void they create. Let me reveal the final profound truths about these hidden signs. The 33rd sign manifests in what I call the energy vampire effect. These individuals drain your vitality not through obvious negativity, but through subtle, persistent undermining of your confidence. I've observed the 34th sign in countless interactions, what I call temporal manipulation. They create artificial urgency or delay responses strategically, controlling the rhythm of your interactions to maintain their power position. Consider this transformative truth. Once you recognize these patterns, you gain immunity to their effects. Your consciousness expands beyond their influence. You begin to operate from a place of unshakable self-knowledge. Think about the ultimate purpose of recognizing these signs. It's not about building walls or becoming suspicious. It's about developing what I call conscious discernment, the ability to read energy accurately and respond from wisdom rather than reaction. Let me share the most powerful understanding of all. These people are actually your greatest teachers. They show you where you need to strengthen your self-belief, where you need to reinforce your boundaries, where you need to trust your intuition more deeply. The real transformation begins when you stop seeing their behavior as personal attacks and start recognizing them as signals pointing toward your own growth. Every instance of hidden dislike is actually an invitation to love yourself more completely. Remember this, your power lies not in confronting these individuals, but in elevating your consciousness beyond the need for their approval. When you truly embody this understanding, their influence over your energy field dissolves naturally. Your journey forward is clear. Stand firmly in your truth. Trust your intuition absolutely. Allow your light to shine without dimming it for anyone's comfort. Those who secretly dislike you are actually afraid of their own potential, which they see reflected in you. The final truth is this: when you fully embrace your authentic power, these signs become irrelevant. You no longer need to identify them because you'll be operating from such a high frequency that lower energies cannot touch you. Your path now is to maintain this elevated consciousness, to walk in complete awareness of your worth, and to let your light shine so brightly that it illuminates the way for others. This is your true power, not in fighting against hidden dislike, but in rising above it completely. Remember, every person who has secretly disliked you has contributed to your growth, your strength, and your wisdom. Thank them silently and continue rising. Your greatest power lies in maintaining your highest vibration regardless of how others respond to your light. This is the end of our journey together, but it's really just the beginning of your new understanding. Take these insights and let them transform not just how you perceive others' behavior, but how you perceive yourself. For in the end, that's where true power resides, in the unshackable knowledge of who you really are. Stand tall in your truth. Walk forward in your power. Let your light shine without apology, for you are far more powerful than any hidden dislike could ever be. This is your time to rise, to shine, and to transform every challenge into an opportunity for growth. The path ahead is clear. Your consciousness is awakened. Your power is activated. Now go forth and create the reality you deserve, and knowing that you have everything you need within you to succeed beyond your wildest dreams. It is who you really are when you recognize your true identity as God's own imagination pushed out into this world. Everything I share tonight comes from my own experience and deep understanding of the law that governs all being. Let us begin with the first mistake. And I ask you to listen not just with your physical ears, but with your spiritual understanding, for what I'm about to share transcends mere intellectual comprehension. Mistake number 1, living from memory instead of imagination. The first and perhaps most devastating mistake that kills your confidence is living from memory rather than imagination. You see, my dear friends, memory is dead imagination. It is the shadow of past experiences that you continue to give life to through your attention and growth. Many of you sit here tonight bound by the chains of your past experiences. Every morning you wake up and immediately recall past failures, past embarrassments, past rejections. You replay these memories like a worn-out record. And in doing so, you deny the very power that God gave you, the power of imagination. Let me share with you a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. A dear friend of mine in Barbados, a man who once could barely speak in public due to paralyzing fear, discovered this profound truth. He had lived his entire life from memory, allowing each past failure to define his present moment. Every time he stood before an audience, his mind would flood with memories of past embarrassments, past stutters, past moments of anxiety. But one day, through the application of this law I'm sharing with you tonight, he made a revolutionary discovery. He realized that his memories had no power over his present moment unless he gave them that power. He began to live from imagination instead of memory. Every night before sleep, he would imagine himself speaking with complete confidence and authority. He would feel the satisfaction of expressing himself freely, feel the joy of connecting with others without fear. He would imagine the warmth of applause, the smiles of appreciation, the feeling of absolute mastery of his communication. And I tell you tonight with absolute certainty that within weeks, his entire world transformed. Why? Because he chose to live from imagination rather than memory. He understood that imagination is God's gift to man. It is the very essence of reality, while memory is but a shadow of what once was. You see, when you live from memory, you are denying the creative power that is your birthright. You are choosing to be bound by what was rather than embracing what could be. This is the first and most fundamental mistake that kills your confidence. Mistake number 2, misunderstanding the true nature of confidence. Now, let us move to the second critical mistake, one that keeps countless souls trapped in limitation: misunderstanding the true nature of confidence. This mistake is so prevalent that it has become accepted as truth in our modern world. You believe confidence is something to be achieved, something to be gained through external accomplishments. You think, when I get that promotion, then I'll be confident. When I lose extra pounds, then I'll feel worthy. When I achieve this goal, then I'll stand tall. My dear friends, this is a complete misunderstanding of the nature of confidence. Confidence is not something you get. It is something you allow. It is your natural state when you recognize who you really are. You are God's own imagination pushed out into this world. How can the imagination of God lack confidence? It is impossible. Let me share with you a profound experience that was shared with me by a young lady in New York. She had accomplished everything society told her would bring confidence, multiple degrees, a prestigious career, financial success, social recognition. Yet she felt hollow inside, constantly seeking the next achievement that would finally make her feel confident. One day she came to me in tears asking why, despite all her accomplishments, she still felt insecure. I shared with her what I'm sharing with you tonight, that she was seeking confidence from the outside, and when it can only flow from the inside out. I taught her to realize that confidence is not the result of what you do. Rather, what you do is the result of the state of consciousness you occupy. When she began to live from this truth, her entire world transformed. Not because she achieved more, but because she finally recognized who she really was. Mistake number 3, rejecting your present self. The third mistake, and this is crucial to understand, is the continuous rejection of your present self. This mistake is particularly insidious because it often masquerades as self-improvement or spiritual seeking. Many of you sit here tonight in a state of constant self-rejection, always pushing your acceptance of self into some imagined future. You tell yourself, I will accept myself when I will feel confident when, but I tell you, this is a fundamental denial of your divine nature. Remember the words from Scripture, I am that I am, not I will be or I was, but I am. This is the name of God, and it is your name too, for you are one with God. When you reject your present self, you reject the I am within you. I recall a gentleman who came to me in Los Angeles, completely defeated by this very mistake. He had spent years rejecting his present self, always living for some future moment when he would finally feel worthy of confidence. His life was a constant postponement of self-acceptance. I shared with him a principle that transformed his life. The only time you can accept yourself is now at all. The only time you can feel confident is now. The only time you can recognize your divine nature is now all. He began to practice this truth, and within months his entire life transformed. Not because he became someone different, but because he finally accepted who he already was. Mistake number 4, misusing your inner dialogue. Let us move to the 4th mistake, which is perhaps the most pervasive of all, the misuse of your inner dialogue. Your inner conversation, my dear friends, is your destiny externalized. Every moment, every day, you are carrying on a conversation with yourself, and this conversation is creating your world. Most of you are engaged in constant self-defeating inner dialogue. You wake up and your first thought is, I'm not ready for this day. You face a challenge and immediately think, I can't handle this. You meet someone successful and think, I'm not at their level. These inner conversations are not mere thoughts. They are prayers and they are always answered. Your inner dialogue is the spirit moving upon the face of the waters of your consciousness, creating your world. Let me share with you a principle that has transformed countless lives. Your inner dialogue is not just other mental chatter. It is the very substance from which your world is formed. When you change your inner dialogue, you change your world. I knew a man in New York who transformed his entire life by simply changing his inner conversation. Instead of his habitual, I can't, he began to live from I am. Instead of I'm not good enough, he lived from I am more than enough. He persisted in this new inner dialogue until it became natural and his outer world rearranged itself to match his new inner conversation. Mistake number 5, seeking permission to be confident. The 5th mistake that many of you are making is seeking permission to be confident. This mistake stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of your true nature and your relationship with the world around you. You look to others for validation, for permission to stand in your own power. You seek approval from friends, family, colleagues, even strangers before allowing yourself to feel confident. This, my dear friends, is a complete denial of your divine nature. You need no one's permission to be who you are. You need no one's approval to stand in your power. The very fact that you can imagine being confident means that confidence is your natural state. For how can you imagine what you are not capable of being? I remember a young teacher who came to me constantly seeking approval from her colleagues, her principal, her students' parents. She lived in a constant state of seeking permission to be confident in her role. I shared with her this truth. The only permission she needed was her own. I told her to imagine herself as the confident teacher she wished to be, not to seek it, not to ask for it, but to assume it, to live from it. And as she began to live from this assumption, her entire classroom transformed. Why? Because she stopped seeking permission and started giving herself permission to be who she really was. Mistake number 6, confusing confidence with arrogance. Now let us address the 6th mistake, one that keeps many spiritual seekers trapped in limitation, the confusion between confidence and arrogance. This misconception has caused countless souls to deny their divine confidence for fear of appearing arrogant. True confidence, my dear friends, is the most natural and humble state of being. It is simply the recognition of who you really are, God's own imagination pushed out into this world. Arrogance, on the other hand, comes from ego and insecurity. When you are truly confident, you have no need to prove anything to anyone. You have no need to compete, to compare, to belittle others, to feel better about yourself. True confidence is as natural as breathing, as humble as a flower blooming in the garden. I knew a businessman who struggled with this very issue. He feared that by fully embracing his confidence, he would become one of those arrogant executives he despised. But as he began to understand this law, he realized that true confidence had nothing to do with superiority and everything to do with authenticity. He learned to live from the state of natural confidence, and his entire business transformed. His relationships improved, his decisions became more effective, and most importantly, he found a peace he had never known before. Mistake number 7, living in the future instead of the now. The 7th mistake is one that plagues nearly everyone in this room, living in the future instead of the now. This mistake is particularly deceptive because it often masquerades as goal setting or ambition. You think, I'll be confident when I achieve this goal, or I'll feel worthy when I reach that milestone. But I tell you tonight, there's a complete denial of the power that is yours now, though. The only time you can be confident is now, though. The only time you can feel worthy is now, though. The only time you can exercise your imagination is now, though. When you push confidence into the future, you push it out of your experience entirely. Remember the words of Scripture before Abraham was, I am. Not I will be, but I am. This is the eternal no due in which all power exists. When you live in the future, you deny yourself access to this power. I recall a young actor who came to me, always pushing his confidence into some future moment. When I get this role, he would say, then I'll feel confident. I taught him what I'm teaching you now, to live from the end, to imagine the feeling of being confident, no, regardless of external circumstances. As he began to live from this truth, his entire career transformed. Not because he became someone different in the future, but because he chose to be confident in Odal. Mistake 8, denying your divine nature. And now we come to the 8th and final mistake. The one that underlies all others, the denial of your divine nature. This mistake is the root cause of all lack of confidence, all feelings of unworthiness, all self-doubt. You see, my dear friends, you are not merely human beings seeking a spiritual experience. You are spiritual beings having a human experience. When you deny your divine nature, you deny the very source of all confidence. Every time you say, I can't, you deny your divine nature. Every time you shrink from a challenge, you deny your divine nature. Every time you seek confidence outside yourself, you deny your divine nature. I want to share with you a profound true truth that was revealed to me through years of studying Scripture and testing this law. Your imagination is God operating in you. Therefore, when you imagine yourself as confident, you are not engaging in mere positive thinking. You are aligning with your true nature, the solution, living from the end. Now that we have identified these 8 mistakes, what is the solution? The solution, my dear friends, is to live from the end. To imagine the feeling of being confident now, regardless of external circumstances. Every night before you sleep, imagine yourself as the confident being you wish to be. Feel it as real. Feel the satisfaction of expressing yourself freely. Feel the joy of standing in your power. Feel the peace that comes from knowing who you really are. This is not mere visualization of positive thinking. This is the actual substance of things hopeful, the evidence of things not seen. When you imagine with feeling, you are creating reality, the practice of the law. Let me give you a practical application of this law. Tonight, when you go to bed, imagine a scene that implies you are now the confident person you wish to be. Make it a short, simple scene that you can repeat easily. Perhaps it's someone congratulating you on your confidence. Perhaps it's you feeling completely at ease in a situation that used to cause anxiety. Whatever scene you choose, ensure it implies that you are now a confident. Repeat this scene until it feels natural, until it feels more real than your current circumstances. Fall asleep in this feeling. For asleep, your subconscious mind accepts as real what you have impressed upon it. The promise of transformation. I promise you, if you will apply this law, if you will persist in living from the end, your world will transform. For this is not mere positive thinking or psychology. This is the law by which worlds are created. Remember, confidence is not something you get. It is something you allow. It is your natural state when you recognize who you really are. You are God's own imagination pushed out into this world. How can the imagination of God lack confidence? The living proof. Let me share with you one final story that perfectly illustrates this principle. A young woman came to me several years ago, completely lacking in confidence. She had tried everything: self-help books, therapy, workshops, but nothing had worked. I shared with her what I'm sharing with you tonight. I taught her to live from the end, to imagine herself as the confident being she wished to be. Every night before sleep, she would imagine scenes implying she was not confident and self-assured. At first, it felt mechanical, even false, but she persisted. Night after night, she would fall asleep feeling the satisfaction of being confident. And gradually, something remarkable began to happen. Her world began to reshape itself to match her assumption. Opportunities appeared that allowed her to express her newfound confidence. People began to respond to her differently. She found herself speaking up in meetings, sharing her ideas freely, connecting with others effortlessly. Not because she had become someone different, but because she had finally recognized who she really was. The final understanding. My dear friends, I have shared with you tonight the 8 mistakes that are killing your confidence. But more importantly, I have shared with you the solution. The solution is not in doing, but in being, not in achieving, but in assuming, not in becoming, but in recognizing who you already are. Test this law. Apply what I have shared with you tonight. Imagine yourself as the confident being you wish to be. Feel it as real. Live from that assumption. For I tell you with absolute certainty, what you imagine with feeling while in a state into sleep must objectify itself in your world. The promise fulfilled. Let me conclude with this final thought. The transformation you seek is not in the future. It is in your imagination. The confidence you desire is not something to be achieved. It is something to be assumed down. Remember, you are not working towards confidence. You are working from confidence. You are not trying to become confident. You are acknowledging the confidence that is already yours by divine right. Go forth tonight and apply this law, live from the assumption of being confident nowadays. For I tell you truly, the world has no choice but to reshape itself to match your assumption. This is the law. And the law never fails. The world is yourself pushed out. Therefore, as you assume the feeling of confidence, the world must reflect back to you that same confidence. This is not magic or mysticism. This is the law by which all things are created. Remember, my dear friends, that every moment of every day, you are either living from memory or living from imagination. Choose imagination. Choose to live from the end. Choose to recognize your divine nature. For in doing so, you will discover that the confidence you seek has been within you all along, waiting only for your recognition and acceptance. Thank you and good night. Tonight, I want to share with you a profound truth about the power of your absence, about what happens in the consciousness of others when you simply disappear from their world. For in understanding this, you will understand the great law of consciousness and manifestation. Let me tell you about the first state they enter when you disappear, what I call the state of sudden awareness. In this state, those who took your presence for granted suddenly become acutely aware of the space you once occupied. It's as if they've been sleeping, and your absence becomes their awakening. In the Bible, it states they knew not what they had until it was taken away. This is not mere poetry. This is a precise description of how consciousness operates with sudden absence. Consider this profound truth. When you disappear from someone's world, you create what I call the vacuum of consciousness. Nature upholds a vacuum, and so does consciousness. Your absence creates a void that must be filled with new awareness. Let me share with you the second state, what I call the state of heightened value. When you disappear, those who undervalued your presence suddenly begin to recall every moment, every interaction, every value you brought to their world. Your absence becomes a magnifying glass through which they see your true worth. This is what the scripture means when it says, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." Your absence forces others to wait, to contemplate, to renew their understanding of your value in their world. The third state is what I call the state of emotional realization. In this state, those from whom you've disappeared begin to feel emotions they suppressed or took for granted while you were present. Your absence becomes the key that unlocks their buried feelings. Consider this deeply. When you remove yourself from someone's world, you create what I call the mirror of absence. In this mirror, they begin to see not just their loss of you, but their own role in creating that loss. The fourth state is what I call the state of retrospective clarity. In this state, those left behind begin to review every interaction, every moment, every word exchange. Your absence becomes the lens through which they clearly see what was once blurred by familiarity. This is what the Bible means when it says, "Now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face." Your disappearance removes the darkness of familiarity and brings everything into sharp focus. Let me share with you the fifth state, what I call the state of projected futures. Those from whom you've disappeared begin to imagine futures without you. And in doing so, they realize the value of the futures they could have had with you. You see, most people make this fundamental error. They think their presence is what makes the biggest impact. But I tell you this, sometimes it is your absence that creates the most profound transformation in others' consciousness. Let me share with you the sixth state that emerges in their consciousness, what I call the state of internal questioning. When you disappear, those left behind enter a profound state of self-examination. They begin to question not just your absence, but their own role in creating it. In the Bible, it states, "Examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith." This self-examination becomes inevitable when you create the void of your absence. They cannot help but look within. Consider this deep truth. Your disappearance creates what I call the mirror of responsibility. In this mirror, they see not just their loss of you, but their own actions, their own choices, their own consciousness that contributed to your departure. The seventh state is what I call the state of emotional amplification. Every feeling they ever had about you becomes intensified. If they took you for granted, that realization becomes painful. If they valued you, that value increases exponentially. This is what the scripture means when it says, "That which is done in secret shall be shouted from the housetops." Your absence reveals what was hidden in their consciousness while you were present. Let me share with you what happens in the eighth state, what I call the state of revised memory. They begin to remember you differently. Every interaction gets re-examined. Every moment gets revalued. Every exchange gets reinterpreted through the lens of your absence. You see, most people make this crucial error. They think memories are fixed and unchangeable. But I tell you this, memories are constantly being revised by present consciousness. And your absence creates a new consciousness through which all memories are filtered. Consider what I call the law of conscious absence. When you disappear from someone's world, you create a void that their consciousness must fill with something. Often it fills with realizations they avoided while you were present. The ninth state is what I call the state of future loss. They begin to feel not just their present loss of you, but all the future moments they will miss with you. Your absence becomes not just a current reality, but a future deprivation. This is what the Bible means when it says they shall look upon him whom they have pierced. Your absence becomes the pierce that makes them really look at what they had and what they've lost. Let me share with you another profound aspect of this truth. When you disappear, you create what I call the vacuum of possibility. In this vacuum, those left behind must confront not just their loss of you, but their loss of all possible futures with you. Think about this deeply. Your disappearance creates a space in their consciousness that cannot be filled by anything else. This space becomes a constant reminder of what they had and what they lost through their own choices or actions. Consider what I call the law of conscious reflection. When you disappear, you force others to see themselves in relation to your absence. They must confront their own behavior, their own choices, their own consciousness that contributed to losing you. This is what the scripture means when it says, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face." Your absence removes the darkness of familiarity and forces them to face themselves clearly. Let me share with you another dimension of this profound truth. Consider what I call the state of escalating awareness. As time passes after your disappearance, that consciousness of your absence doesn't diminish. It actually intensifies. In the Bible, it states, "What I tell you in darkness, that speak ye in light." Your absence becomes the darkness that reveals truths they couldn't see in the light of your presence. Consider how they enter what I call the state of comparative loss. They begin to compare every new interaction, every new relationship, every new moment with the memories of you. Your absence becomes the standard against which everything else is measured. This is what the scripture means when it says, "They shall run to and fro, seeking the word of the Lord." In their consciousness, they begin seeking what they lost when you disappeared, but they cannot find it because what they lost was unique to you. Let me share with you what I call the law of conscious void. When you disappear, you create not just a physical absence, but an emotional and spiritual void that cannot be filled by anyone else. This void becomes a teacher, showing them exactly what they lost. You see, most people make this fundamental error. They think time will diminish the impact of their absence. But I tell you this, time often intensifies the awareness of what was lost through your disappearance. Consider what I call the state of perpetual reminder. Everything in the world begins to remind them of you. Places you went together, things you shared, conversations you had. Your absence becomes omnipresent through these reminders. This is what the Bible means when it says their sins shall find them out. The consequences of their actions or inactions that led to your disappearance become increasingly apparent through these constant reminders. Let me share with you another profound aspect, what I call the state of delayed recognition. Often the full impact of your disappearance isn't felt immediately. Like a stone thrown into a pond, the ripples of your absence continue to spread outward, touching more and more areas of their consciousness. Think about this deeply. Your disappearance waits what I call the echo of absence. This echo reverberates through their consciousness, growing stronger rather than weaker with each repetition. Consider what happens in what I call the state of valuable contrast. Every new person they meet, every new relationship they form, stands in stark contrast to what they lost when you disappeared. Your absence becomes the standard against which all else is measured. This is what the scripture means when it says, "They shall know them by their fruits." The fruits of your absence, the realizations, the regrets, the recognitions become increasingly apparent over time. Let me share with you what I call the law of conscious amplification. When you disappear, every quality you possess, every value you brought, every contribution you made becomes amplified in their consciousness. You see why you were present. Familiarity might have dulled their appreciation of these qualities, but your absence strips away this familiarity, leaving only the stark reality of what was lost. Consider what I call the state of perpetual comparison. They begin to compare everyone else to their memories of you. And these comparisons only serve to highlight what was unique and irreplaceable about your presence. Let me share with you what I call the state of progressive revelation. As time passes after your disappearance, new aspects of their loss continue to reveal themselves, like layers of an onion being peeled away. In the Bible, it states that which is hidden shall be revealed. Your absence becomes the revealer of truths they couldn't or wouldn't see while you were present. Consider what happens in what I call the state of emotional archaeology. They begin to dig through their memories, uncovering moments and meanings they hadn't fully appreciated before. Your disappearance becomes the tool that unearths these buried treasures. This is what the scripture means when it says, "Seek and ye shall find." But what they find in your absence is often not what they expected. They find the truth about themselves, their behavior, their choices. Let me share with you what I call the law of conscious vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. But when you disappear, you create a vacuum that cannot be filled by anyone else. This persistent emptiness becomes a constant teacher. You see, most people make this crucial error. They think they can quickly fill the void left by someone's disappearance. But I tell you this, some voids are meant to remain unfilled, serving as permanent reminders of what was lost. Consider what I call the state of perpetual learning. Every day without you becomes a lesson in value, in appreciation, in understanding what they had and what they lost through your disappearance. This is what the Bible means when it says line upon line, precept upon precept. The lessons of your absence continue to build upon each other, creating a growing understanding of their loss. Let me share with you another profound dimension, what I call the state of reverse perspective. In your absence, they begin to see everything from a new angle. What once seemed unimportant becomes crucial. What once seemed trivial becomes significant. Think about this deeply. Your disappearance creates what I call the mirror of truth. In this mirror, they see not just their loss of you, but their own role in creating that loss, their own responsibility in your departure. Consider what happens in what I call the state of emotional echo. Every memory of you creates an echo that reverberates through their consciousness, growing stronger rather than weaker with time. This is what the scripture means when it says the last shall be first. The last moments they had with you, the last words they spoke to you, the last opportunities they missed. All these become first in their consciousness. Let me share with you what I call the law of conscious intensity. When you disappear, the intensity of their feelings doesn't diminish with time. Instead, it often increases as they fully realize the magnitude of their loss. You see, while you were present, they might have taken certain qualities for granted, but in your absence, these qualities become magnified, highlighted, impossible to ignore. Consider what I call the state of perpetual discovery. They continue to discover new aspects of their loss, new dimensions of what they had, new realizations about what your presence meant in their life. Let me share with you what I call the state of emotional crystallization. In your absence, their feelings about you begin to crystallize and interclear, undeniable truths that they might have avoided while you were present. In the Bible, it states, "Now we see face to face." Your disappearance removes the veil of familiarity that obscured their true feelings, their true understanding of your value in their world. Consider what happens in what I call the state of perpetual presence to absence. Though physically absent, you become more present in their consciousness than ever before. Your disappearance creates a more powerful presence than your physical presence ever did. This is what the scripture means when it says being absent in body, but present in spirit. Your physical absence actually intensifies your spiritual and emotional presence in their consciousness. Let me share with you what I call the law of conscious multiplication. When you disappear, every memory, every interaction, every moment shared becomes multiplied in significance. What once seemed ordinary becomes extraordinary in retrospect. You see, most people make this fundamental error. They think absence diminishes presence. But I tell you this, true absence often creates a more powerful presence in consciousness than physical presence ever could. Consider what I call the state of eternal now. In your absence, all those moments they took for granted become eternally present in their consciousness. The past becomes their perpetual now, filled with the recognition of what they've lost. This is what the Bible means when it says 1,000 years in the sight are but as yesterday. Time loses its normal progression in the consciousness of loss. Every memory becomes immediately present, immediately powerful. Let me share with you another profound aspect, what I call the state of valuable contrast. Every new person they meet, every new relationship they form, stands in stark comparison to what they lost when you disappeared. Your absence becomes the standard against which all else is measured. Think about this deeply. Your disappearance creates what I call the vacuum of irreplaceability. They may try to fill this vacuum with other people, other relationships, other activities. But the unique shape of your absence cannot be filled by anything else. Consider what happens in what I call the state of perpetual revelation. Each day brings new realizations about what they lost when you disappear. Like waves on a shore, these realizations keep coming, each one bringing new understanding. This is what the scripture means when it says, "Deep call it unto deep." The depth of their loss calls for deeper and deeper realizations about what they had and what they lost through your disappearance. Let me share with you what I call the law of conscious acceleration. As time passes, rather than their feelings diminishing, they often accelerate in intensity. The reality of their loss becomes more acute, more profound, more undeniable. You see, while you were present, they might have been able to ignore or deny their true feelings. But in your absence, these feelings become impossible to avoid or deny. Consider what I call the state of emotional archaeology. They begin to dig through their memories, uncovering layer after layer, meaning they hadn't recognized before. Your absence becomes the tool that reveals these hidden treasures. Let me share with you what I call the state of perpetual questioning. In your absence, they enter a state of constant self-interrogation. Why did they act as they did? Why didn't they appreciate what they had? Why didn't they see what was right before them? In the Bible, it states, "Examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith." This self-examination becomes relentless when triggered by your disappearance. Every memory becomes a question. Every past interaction, a source of reflection. Consider what I call the state of emotional magnification. What might have seemed like small moments while you were present become magnified in your absence. A casual conversation becomes a precious memory. A shared laugh becomes a treasure. A simple gesture becomes profound. This is what the scripture means when it says, "The first shall be last and the last shall be first." What they considered least important while you were present often becomes most important in your absence. Let me share with you what I call the law of conscious reversal. In your absence, their entire perspective reverses. What they took for granted becomes precious. What they overlooked becomes central. What they dismissed becomes essential. You see, most people make this crucial error. They think they understand the value of something while it's present. But I tell you, this true value is often only realized through absence. Consider what I call the state of perpetual presence. Though physically absent, you become more present in their consciousness than ever before. Your disappearance creates a presence that permits every aspect of their awareness. This is what the Bible means when it says the kingdom of heaven is within you. Your absence creates an internal kingdom of memories, realizations, and understanding that wasn't possible while you were physically present. Let me share with you another profound dimension, what I call the state of emotional echo. Every memory of you creates an echo that reverberates through their consciousness, growing stronger rather than weaker with each repetition. Think about this deeply. Your disappearance creates what I call the mirror of truth. In this mirror, they see not just their loss of you, but their own role in creating that loss, their own responsibility in your departure. Consider what happens in what I call the state of perpetual comparison. Every new experience, every new relationship, every new interaction gets compared to what they lost when you disappeared. Your absence becomes the standard against which all else is measured. This is what the scripture means when it says they shall know them by their fruits. The fruits of your absence, the realizations, the regrets, the recognitions become increasingly apparent over time. Let me share with you what I call the law of conscious intensification. When you disappear, the intensity of their feelings doesn't diminish with time. Instead, it often increases as they fully realize the magnitude of their loss. You see, while you were present, they might have been able to maintain certain illusions about their feelings, their behavior, their choices, but in your absence, these illusions become impossible to maintain. Consider what I call the state of emotional archaeology. They begin to dig through their memories, uncovering layer after layer of meaning they hadn't recognized before. Your absence becomes the tool that deals these hidden treasures. Let me bring this profound understanding to its completion. Consider what I call the final state of transformative absence. Your disappearance ultimately becomes the catalyst for their complete transformation of consciousness. In the Bible, it states, "All things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new." Your absence creates this newness, this transformation, this complete shift in their consciousness. Let me share with you what I call the law of conscious completion. Through your disappearance, they come to a complete understanding, not just of what they lost, but of who they were, who they are, and who they must become. This is what the scripture means when it says, "The truth shall make you free." The truth revealed through your absence becomes their pathway to a new consciousness, a new understanding, a new reality. Consider this final truth. Your disappearance creates what I call the state of eternal presence. though physically absent. You become eternally present in their consciousness, teaching them lessons they couldn't learn in your physical presence. You see, this is the ultimate paradox. Sometimes the most powerful presence is absence. Sometimes the most profound teaching is silence. Sometimes the greatest gift is withdrawal. If you think about this deeply, your disappearance creates what I call the final mirror. In this mirror, they see not just what they lost, but who they must become because of that loss. This is what the Bible means when it says, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face." Your absence becomes the clarity through which they finally see themselves truly. Remember this eternal truth. Your disappearance is not just an ending, it's a beginning. It's not just a lost catalyst. It's not just an absence, it's a presence of the most profound kind. For in your physical absence, you create what I call the eternal presence of truth. This truth continues to teach, to reveal, to transform long after your physical presence has ended. This is the power of conscious absence. This is the gift of mindful disappearance. This is the truth of transformative withdrawal. Let this understanding guide you. Let this wisdom direct you. Let this truth transform you. For when you understand the power of your absence, you understand one of the most profound laws of consciousness, that sometimes the greatest presence is absence. The strongest statement is silence. The most powerful action. This is the law. This is the way. This is the truth. And so it is.